Bihari. Janavallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Rajadarandana Yashodanandana Rajadarandana Nativa Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Janavallabha Girivardhari Janavallabha Girivardhari Shodanandana Rajajanarandana Yashodanandana Rajajanarandana Nativa Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Madhava Kunjavihari Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radha. Jaya Radha Samasundara Samasundara. Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Prabhupada. Nitya Go Hare Ba, Hare Ba, Hare Ba, Hare Ba. Nitya Go Hare Ba, Hare Ba, Hare Ba, Hare Ba. Acharya Sudhir Sudhir Divangas Abhichan Bhakti Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Iskan Pamacharya Divangas Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Yo Vishnu Paparam Sabharvachacharya Sudhir Sudhir Divangas Shri Bhakti Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Anand Guru Vaishnava Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Vidas Thakur Ki Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Sri Gaura Bhakta Ki Jai Shri Shri Hare Krishna Gopika Shyam Radha Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Vandarajman Bhagavad-Gita Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glory is to the simple devotees. All glory is to the simple devotees. All glory is to the simple devotees. All glory, Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glory, Shri Prabhupada Ki.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna and welcome to all the wonderful devotees online. Thank you very much for your association in associating with Srimad Bhagavatam, going through Canto 1, Chapter 5. Today we're going to be covering verses 8 to 16. Narad's instructions on Srimad Bhagavatam for Srila Vyasadeva. Om Jnanatimi Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapara Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatha Tam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Sarva Shastra Piyusha Sarva Vedeka Satphala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokai Triprada Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabhu Kali Dvando Didatitya Shri Krishna Parivartita O Srimad Bhagavatam, O nectar churned from the ocean of all Vedic scriptures, O most prominent transcendental fruit of all the Vedas, O you are enriched with the jewels of all spiritual philosophic conclusions, O you who grant spiritual vision to all the people of the world, O life breath of the Vaishnava devotees. O Lord, you are the sun which has arisen to dispel the darkness of Kali Yuga. You are actually Lord Krishna who has returned amongst us. Paramananda Pataya Prema Vashasharayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namastute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, offer my respectful obeisances unto you. By reading you, one attains transcendental bliss. For your syllables rain pure love of God upon the reader. You are always to be served by everyone, for you are incarnation of Lord Krishna. Madeka bandhu mad sangim mad guru mad mahadana man nishtarga mad bhagya madananda namastute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O my only friend, O my companion, O my teacher, O my great wealth, O my deliverer, O my good fortune, O my bliss, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Asadu sadhu tadai natini chochataraka hanamunchakada chinmam premna ritkatayospura. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O give us saintliness to the unsaintly, O uplifted very fallen. Please do not ever leave me. Please become manifest Mahatma throat, accompanied by pure love of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Janmadyasya Yatonvayaditaratas Chartes Svabhigna Swarat. Tene Brahma Hidaya Adikavaye Muyanti Yatsuraya. Tejo varimridam yatha vinimayo yatra chisargo mrisha. Damna swena sada nirastakwakam satyam param dhimahi. Oh my Lord, Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisance unto you. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primal cause of all causes of creation, sustenance, destructions of the manifest universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations and is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by the lucid representation of the water seen in fire, or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes temporarily manifest by the reactions of the three modes of nature appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representation of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Prayinalpaisha sabya kalavasmin yuge jana manda sumanda matayo manda bhagyo padrita. O learned one, in this iron age of Kali, men have but short lives. They are quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. Narayan namaskritya narachevam narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Savai pumsa paro dharmo yatho bhakti radokshaje haitukiya pratyata yayatma suprasiddhati. The supreme occupation dharma for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janati Yasya Vairagyam Jnanam Chat Yad Arhutukam. By rendering devotional service under the personality of God as Shri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from this world. Vadanti tattva vidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti sabhyate. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman Paramatma Bhagavan. Shrushroshradanasya Vasudeva Kataruchi Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipra Punyatirtha Nishevanat. O twice born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great services done. By such service one gains divinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. Shranvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Vedantastoya Bhadrani Vidunoti Suritsatam. Shri Krishna, the personality of God, who is Paramatma, supersoul in everyone's heart and the benefactor of true devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtues when properly heard and chanted. Nasta Prayashu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Slokya Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service under the personality of Godhead, whose praise with transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are continuing Srimad Bhagavatam based on the teachings of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So let us recap. Please share any feedback you can share from last week's verses, chapter 5, verses 1 to 7, what you took home, what really touched you in the section we covered last week. Mother Hemavati Radhika says, be humble and meek, then one can enter the kingdom of God. And we know Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the third verse of the Shikshashtikam establishes this point. Trinadapi suni cheno tarorapi seshana amani namadena kirtanya sadahari. One should be more tolerantly devoid of all sense of false prestige and should be ready to offer all respects to others, not expecting anything in return. This is when one comes to this stage, then only can one chant the holy name Lord constantly. So we need to strive for that. Madhacharya says, if one is sincere, he will always find the path. He will always be always directed to the solution without fail. Yes. And therefore, as devotees, as practitioners of the process of bhakti, this is what we want to come to. Be sincere, be truthful, be honest. If you're serious and honest, the solution is available. The help is available. Mother says, the Vedas and Mahabharata are beneficial to some degree and beneficial in society to gradually elevate. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the highest knowledge, so it short-circuits the gradual progression. Yes. And through these verses that we're going to cover today, Srila Vyasa, Narad Muni is going to share that. He's going to chastise Srila Vyasadeva, and he's going to reveal the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. So yes, we want to short circuit. In fact, we've been too long in this material world. Therefore, now Prabhupada is helping us to just short circuit everything and return back to the Supreme Lord. Nalini Kanda Prabhu says, be careful of how we act. We must increase Srila Prabhupada's fame and glory. Yes. Rafana Prabhu says, emblem of knowledge, dissatisfaction, despondency of Vyasadeva. Narad pacifies Vyasadeva, Vyasadev's sense of deficiency. Correct. Shamananda Prabhu says, Hare Krishna Prabhu, if Lord Shri Krishna is not the center, the focus of our efforts, then we will never be satisfied. Yes, there's going to be a vacuum. And this vacuum, this hole in your heart, this lack that people experience, something's missing. What is missing? Why I'm not satisfied? I did this, I did that. I tried this, I tried that, still I'm not satisfied. Okay, somebody suggested this, I tried that. Somebody suggested, I tried that, I got this, I got that. I went from this position to that position, from one body to another, from one entity to another, from one species to another, from one planet to another, from one universe to another, and still I am not satisfied. Why? And the answer is Krishna. You are missing Krishna. And Prabhupada is directing us, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. That is the answer, Krishna. Namabhati says, keep Krishna consciousness engine fired up, the tugboat compared to Maya. Yes, if you keep your Krishna consciousness fired up, then Maya cannot touch you. As soon as you switch off your engine, Maya is going to be very happy. Rasada Prabhu says, we should be alert and fearful of Maya by always keeping Krishna in the center, Krishna conscious association, and this way we can always protect ourselves. Wonderful. Thank you very much for your kind feedback and recapping those important points that Srila Prabhupada has revealed to us. We're going to now be continuing verses 8 to 16 in 3 sections, and we'll see that Prabhupada gives more extensive purports to these verses. And I'm going to read all the purports, even though they're lengthy, because by associating with Srila Prabhupada, we are serving Krishna, we are serving Srila Prabhupada. So, and that is the essence of this series of Srimad Bhagavatam. It's not about entertainment. It's not about just, gleaming 1 or 2 points from a class. It's not just about dutifully attending a lecture, but it's really about cultivating our relationship with Krishna through the Srimad Bhagavatam, through Srila Prabhupada's purports, cultivating a relationship with Srila Prabhupada. So therefore, we spend the time associating with Srila Prabhupada's purport, whether it's long or whether it's short. Just like when we have a relationship, a loving relation with somebody, there's no question of time. We can speak and speak and speak and speak and speak, and time flies and think, oh, wow, it's already midnight. It's already 4 o'clock, I need to leave now. So like that, we want to spend the time associating with the Supreme Lord and Prabhupada's purpose. So verses 8 and 9. In these verses, we are hearing Narad Muni's diagnose. Srila Narad Muni is now going to present his diagnose to Srila Vyasadeva, and we're going to hear. And there's going to be two main categories of this diagnose, two main defects that Narad Muni is picking up. Srila Vyasadeva had some idea, and Narad Muni is now going to clarify. So verse 8, the first defect. Shri Narado Vacha Bhavatanudita Prayam Yasho Bhagavato Malam Yene Vaso Natus Yeta Manyata Darshanam Kilam. Shri Narad said, you have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That philosophy, which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord, is considered worthless. So that's the first diagnosis, that you've glorified, you've given glorification, but that glorification that does not satisfy. Bhavatanudita Prayam, that does not satisfy the senses of the Supreme Lord, is considered worthless. And Narad Muni is, he's very strong. He's straight to the point because of his loving relationship with Krishna. Just like when Srila Prabhupada would sometimes be strong, it's not because Srila Prabhupada is trying to criticize and condemn people, but because of his loving relation with Krishna, he wants everyone, that compassionate nature of Prabhupada is permeating through his words, and he wants everyone to also experience this relationship with Krishna. He doesn't want to cheat people. So Narad Muni also, he's not interested in cheating. He's got a wonderful relationship with the Supreme Lord, and he knows that every one of us deserve, and it's our birthright, it's our existence right to have that relationship. Therefore, they are presenting the truth, which may be straightforward, to the point, and sharp, piercing to the heart, but that is also purifying for conditioned souls. So the reason for dissatisfaction, Srila Prabhupada in the purport says, the eternal relationship of an individual soul with the Supreme Soul, Personality of Godhead, is constitutionally one of being the eternal servitor of the Eternal Master. So this is our nature, our constitutional position. We cannot avoid this. If we avoid this, we will experience a vacuum. We will experience incompleteness. We will be miserable. We will suffer. If we embrace this, understand this, and embrace this, we will be satisfied. We will be happy. We will be content. We will be blissful. The Lord has expanded himself as living beings in order to accept loving service from them. And this alone can satisfy both the Lord and the living beings. Such a scholar as Vyasadeva has completed many expansions of Vedic literatures, ending with the Vedanta Sutra, but none of them have been written directly glorifying the personality of Godhead. Dry philosophical speculation, even on the transcendental subject of the Absolute, have very little attraction without directly dealing with the glorification of the Lord. The personality of Godhead is the last word in transcendental realization. The Absolute, realized as impersonal Brahman or localized Super Soul, Paramatma, is less productive of transcendental bliss than supreme personal realization of his glories. So Srila Vyasadeva, he expanded the Vedas, given the Vedanta Sutra, the Vedanta of philosophy, but it was written with a different focus and not directly glorifying the Supreme Lord. And because of this lack, because of this deviation, Vyasadeva felt this dissatisfaction. The compiler of the Vedanta Darshan is Vyasadeva himself, yet he is troubled, although he is the author. So what sort of transcendental bliss can be derived by the readers and the listeners of Vedanta, which is not explained directly by Vyasadeva, the author? Herein arises the necessity of explaining Vedanta Sutra in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam by the self-same author. Wonderful point, that Vyasadeva, who's the compiler, if he's not satisfied with his work, then no matter what people do with the work that he's given, they read it, they study it, they will also be satisfied. They'll come to the same conclusion, dissatisfaction. Similarly, Srila Prabhupada, who's the lover of Krishna, who has a wonderful relationship, a special relationship with Krishna as the Senapati Bhakta of Lord Chaitanya. He's got a very intimate relationship with Lord Chaitanya. When we associate with his purports, because he is pleasing Krishna and he has that wonderful relationship, and Krishna desired that he gives us these Bhaktivedanta purports. When we read and associate with these purports, we get the same result of that wonderful loving relationship. So Vyasa Narad Muni is very, very clear, saying that you have not praised Anu Dita Prayam. Anu means, you haven't constantly, or you haven't extensively praised the glories of Yasha, glories, Bhagavata, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his spotless glories. You have not praised Anudita Prayam. So therefore, that is your fault, your first reason why you are dissatisfied. Lack of sufficient glorification of the Supreme Lord. Prabhupada, in a lecture that he had given on these verses in New Vrindavan, May 23, 1969, Prabhupada says, you have given so many literatures, but Bhavata Nudita Prayam Yasho Bhagavata Malam. There is no incessant glorification of the personality of Godhead. So remember this, the Bhagavatam is also revealing our mistake. We're trying so many things and something's missing. And what is that which is missing? We are lacking. We are not incessantly glorifying the Supreme Lord. So when we start embracing incessantly glorifying Supreme Lord, we will find the solution. We will experience the difference. Just like Mahabharata, that's a great epic. But there are politics, there's so many politics, sociology, fight, this, that. But in the middle, there is little glories of God, Bhagavad-Gita. So the book is not full of the glories of the Lord. Krishna is there, but there is a partial representation. Now Narad Muni says that not as sidelight, completely you have to write one book simply glorifying the Supreme Lord. Then you'll be satisfied. Not sidelight, completely. Bhavatanu Dita Prayam. So to become a religious person, to become an economical, very well-to-do, or to become a salvationist, desiring to merge into existence, to become one with God, these things are not, I mean to say, very satisfactory to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagavatas tu tasho Bhagavan Gaja Yutpaya. If you want to satisfy the Supreme Lord, then you have to accept the path of devotional service. So glorify the Supreme Lord incessantly in one book. And that one book is Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is simply the glorification of the Supreme Lord. It is glorification, glorification, glorification. Therefore, when we associate with Srimad Bhagavatam, it is glorious, glorious, and glorious. Then Prabhupada makes another point. and just in referring to Prabhupada's point of all the other activities, all the other situations, you're a religious person, you're very wealthy, you're a salvationist, you desire to merge with God, you want to become that, those become one with God, those things don't please the Supreme Personality of God. Then Prabhupada says, Aso Bhagavan Nat Tushyata. He is not pleased. Manyata Darshanam Kilam. That is insignificant. That means he hinted that you are very much proud that you have written Vedanta Sutra. You don't think by writing your Vedanta Sutra God is pleased? Don't think so. It is clearly said, Manyata Darshanam. You have done wonderful work in writing Vedanta Sutra. But I think Tad Darshanam Kilam. It is insignificant. It is no, because my philosophical speculation, by argument, because by philosophical speculation, by argument, this or that, it is all. God is not satisfied because you are very erudite scholar. God is satisfied by the love of the gopis. They are not philosophers. They are not even brahmanas. They are not even men, ordinary village girls, but their devotion for Krishna, oh, there is no comparison. There is no comparison. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya says, Ramya Kachit Upasana Vraja Vadu Varge. So that is the highest stage. How to love Krishna without any motive, without any material profit, without any personal consideration. That, if we can reach that, then Yayatma Suprasiddhati, then we'll be satisfied. Otherwise, there is no satisfaction. It is simply useless waste of time. So Vyasadeva gave a wonderful work, Vedanta Sutra. When people study it, people practically give their whole life, and they're amazed by the content, especially those who are on this journey of self-realization. But ultimately, it's the total waste of time. Why? Because Krishna is not satisfied with Vedanta Sutra. Krishna is not satisfied with your scholarship. Krishna is not satisfied with your material endeavors, all big things that you build, you create, you manufacture. No, Krishna is satisfied with love. And the goal, we already heard in the first chapter, the goal is Haritoshanam, to please Krishna. So this should be the underlining principle of our life. In everything we do, are we pleasing Krishna? Are we satisfying Krishna's senses? Because Krishna's senses is priority. Not your senses, not their senses, not anyone else's senses, but Krishna's senses. Naturally, the pure devotees' senses, Srila Prabhupada's senses. But ultimately, by satisfying the senses of the pure devotees and the devotees, we also satisfy Krishna's senses. So that was the first diagnosis. Not sufficiently glorifying Krishna. Krishna was not focus. Then text 9, 159, Narad Muni says, Yata dharma dayas charta muni varyanukirtita na tata vasudevasya mahima yanuvartina mahima yanuvarnita. Although great sage, you have very broadly described the 4 principles, beginning with religious performances. You have not described in such an extent the glories of the Supreme Personality, Vasudeva. So Vyasadeva may object, but I did, I gave Bhagavad-Gita. It's talking about Krishna. In the Padma Purana, I've described glories of Krishna. I've shared pastimes of Krishna. And Narad Muni says, yes, I agree, you have. But you've repeatedly given so much information about Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. You've repeatedly stressed fruitive activities. And because you've repeatedly stressed fruitive activities, then everyone is going to hear what you're repeating and follow what you're repeating and become convinced of what you're repeating. So you haven't repeatedly glorified Krishna. So you haven't sufficiently glorified Krishna, text 8, and text 9, you haven't repeatedly glorified. So it's not just sufficient, but repeatedly you need to glorify Krishna. You need to repeatedly inform everyone, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If we see Srila Prabhupada's Bhaktivedanta purports, we see Srila Prabhupada's lectures, Prabhupada again and again and again, he'll repeat the point, chant Hare Krishna, surrender to the Supreme Lord. Krishna is the Supreme Lord. Why? Because of this point. Because if something is repeated, just saying it once, you forget it. Keep repeating it, it will go in, it will sink in. So you've repeated karma, fruit of activities, and therefore people have been misled. Wonderful diagnosed by Narad Muni. Prabhupada says, the prompt diagnosis of Sri Narad is at once declared. The root cause of despondency of Vyasadeva was his deliberate avoidance of glorifying the Lord in his various editions of the Puranas. His deliberate avoidance of glorifying the Lord. Because Vyasadeva had a good intention, but that good intention had deliberate avoidance or glorification of the Lord. Sometimes we may have good intention to help people, minus Krishna. ... might as well go to hell. Waste of time. Bhagavatam is not here like Prabhupada gives an example of a boil. You have a boil, so therefore blow on it. It'll be suited. Nice. No, Bhagavatam is saying take the surgical knife and uproot it once and for all. That is Bhagavatam. That is the wonderful position of Srimad Bhagavatam. Develop your relationship with Krishna once and for all, and all your problems dissipate. Not only do your problems dissipate, because that's liberation, but you will begin to experience the wonderful personality, Krishna, Shri Krishna. He has certainly, as a matter of course, given descriptions of the glories of the Lord Shri Krishna, but not as many as given to religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and salvation. These 4 items are by far inferior to engagement in devotional service of the Lord. And you see, when you are exposed to all the saintly people in India, you find that this is what they propagate: Dharma, Artha, Moksha, and Kam. These 4 Purushartha, these 4 goals. Again and again and again. You can extensively research and you'll see these are the 4 points. Why? Because they're following Srila Vyasadeva, who is the author of the Vedas. But when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, no, these 4 are not the goal. Prema Pumartha Mahan, pure love of Krishna, that is the primary goal. And Lord Chaitanya's associate, Srila Prabhupada, following in the footsteps of these glorious associates, have given us this message. Srila Vyasadeva, as the authorized scholar, knew very well the difference, and still, instead of giving more importance to the better type of engagement, namely devotional service to the Lord, he had more or less improperly used his valuable time, and thus he was despondent. From this, it is clearly indicated that no one can be pleased substantially without being engaged in devotional service of the Lord. In Bhagavad-Gita, this fact is clearly mentioned. So if we really want to be pleased, if we really want to be happy, then we must engage in devotional service. After liberation, which is the last item in the line of performing religiosity, etc., one is engaged in pure devotional service. This is called the stage of self-realization, or the Brahma-Bhuta stage. After attainment of this Brahma-Bhuta stage, one is satisfied. So liberation, coming to liberation, is a stage. Beyond liberation is pure devotional service. And when you now engage in pure devotional service and you come to this Brahma Bhuta stage, then you become satisfied. But satisfaction is the beginning of transcendental bliss. So satisfaction is also not the goal. Satisfaction is one of the stages, and after satisfaction is transcendental bliss. So this is what everyone is seeking. Ananda Maya Bhyasat. Why? Because the Supreme Lord is also seeking for transcendental bliss. And because we are coming from the Lord, we also want transcendental bliss. So it's not wrong. It's your nature to have transcendental bliss. But we have to understand dharma, artha, kam, moksha, liberation. We need to become liberated from this material entanglement, this material conditioning, and come to the stage of Brahma Bhuta, self-realization, pure devotional service. Then we come to the stage of satisfaction, which is now the beginning of transcendental bliss, when we have a loving relationship with Krishna. One should progress by attaining neutrality and equality in the relative world, and passing the stage of equanimity. One is fixed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. This is the instruction of the personality of God in Bhagavad-Gita. The conclusion is that in order to maintain the status quo of Brahma Bhuta stage, as also to increase the degree of transcendental realization, Narada recommends to Vyasa that he, Vyasadeva, should now eagerly and repeatedly describe the path of devotional service. This would cure him from his gross despondency. And that solution we have in our hands. And if we now bathe in this glorification of Srimad Bhagavatam, we will also become cured of our gross and subtle despondencies. The path of devotional service will be eagerly and repeatedly described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, again and again and again. And by doing that, we will become purified. And when we become purified, we will now begin to relish the glorification. We will begin to experience the relationship. So the same scripture, Srimad Bhagavatam, will have different impact on our heart at different stages of our perfection. In the beginning, it's about spending time with the Bhagavatam. We may be thinking we're spending, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours a day. Is like, that's a lot. That's a week. That's a lot. No, that's not a lot. We need to spend all our time. Now we may say, but that's not practical. But we have to start somewhere. And when we start somewhere, at least spending time, we then get purified. That purification changes the dynamics, the reactions that we experience in this world. Our karma changes, and Krishna then makes arrangements for us to spend more time, and then more time, more purification. We're starting to develop love for Krishna, or sentiments of attachment to Krishna, and this increases appreciation, gratitude. We want to now hear more about Krishna. Then we begin to experience Krishna. We get glimpses, small fractions, small glimpses of reciprocation. And this increases, and this starts to snowball. Eventually, we'll spend all our time with the Bhagavatam, become totally, completely purified of all our sins, have a stronger and deeper relation with Krishna. And then when we start reading the Bhagavatam, it is not a book. We are actually entering every single pastime. Like here, we are sitting right next to Narad Muni, who's sharing, who's guiding Vyasadeva, And we in that environment, we are experiencing that. We are not in this material world anymore. We have transcendentally gone into the pastimes of Krishna and experiencing that relationship with Krishna through his different associates. And that is the goal. That is the goal. So our ultimate focus is relationship with Shri Krishna. Prabhupada in this lecture says, you have taken much trouble about these ritualistic performances in the Vedas and other literatures, but you have not taken much trouble to describe the glories of Vasudeva. Vasudeva Sarvam Iti. So just see, even Srila Vyasadeva, Krishna is making the arrangement through Srila Vyasadeva, we are learning that we taking the trouble, we spending time. If we take in the trouble, we're spending the time, might as well do it in the right direction, with the right focus, with the right intention. Not wasting time. Just like Prabhupada would say, if you're going to chant Hare Krishna, do it properly. Otherwise, don't do it, in essence. Because then you're not going to get the result that you seek. So Srila Vyasadeva definitely spent so much time giving the Vedanta Sutras, giving all these ritualistic performances. But the end result is not as ideal as Narad Muni and Krishna wants. We go through all the trouble and we still back to where we are or where we started in the material world. That is not solution. If we're going to spend time, if we're going to take the trouble, then we want to take the trouble so that we can find a permanent solution to all our problems. So consider this wonderful plate of prasad. And the devotee prepared, special rice, pushpana rice, special sabjis. And these are like, unique sabjis that he's prepared in this feast. And he invites you for this feast. And he told you that, I've got this special preparations, unique preparations. First time it took me so long to get these recipes, and I've now cooked, and I want you to come and honor this recipe or this preparation. And you go for prasadam, and you sit, and he puts a plate, and all of a sudden, he loads the plate with chapatis. Practically the whole plate is chapatis. And the preparations that he was talking about, special rice and two special sabjis, just like a small spoonful underneath the chapatis. You'll be upset. Like, you excited me to come for these preparations, and now you're just giving me this chapatis. Like, come on, it's not good. So that's what Srila Vyasadeva did. He just, gave Krishna here and there, and then covered Krishna with all the ritualistic ceremonies, demigod worship, karma kande activities. And therefore you find everyone, they're all interested in puja, rituals, this ritual, that ritual, on this day, that day, so many rituals. No one is interested in pure devotional service to Krishna. And when Srila Prabhupada presents Krishna consciousness, and people who are in this category, they feel uncomfortable. So Narad Muni is saying, this is what you've done. And if we see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the perfect devotee. So if we want to learn how to perfect our lives as devotees, we follow Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has in his heart Shyam Sundar, Krishna. And this is who we want to install on the altar of our heart, in the altar of our heart. We don't want anything else in our heart but Shri Krishna. And Shri Krishna's paraphernalia and associates in the boat. That is what we want. So we want to make sure that whatever else is occupying space, because as long as something was occupying space in your heart, Krishna cannot be there. Just like if I give you a glass of water and then I give you orange juice. Now you cannot put that orange juice in the cup, in your glass, because the glass is already filled. You need to empty your glass and then you can fill it with juice. Similarly, if our heart is filled with so many things, unnecessary things, Prabhupada said we've created so many unnecessary necessities. The only necessity is our loving relationship with Krishna. Everything else is unnecessary. So we need to remove all those unnecessary necessities and bring Krishna into our lives. And we do this specifically, which Narad Muni is focusing and guiding Srila Vyasadeva in the direction, is by glorification of Krishna. And we see Narad Muni doing that. He travels with his Veena. See, his Veena is for what? It's for singing, for glorification. There's that beautiful song, Narada Muni. Beautiful song where Narad Muni is glorifying Radha and Krishna with his Veena. And this is what Narad Muni is encouraging. We want to glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now verses 10 to 11, we're going to now cover two types of literatures. So 8 and 9, we covered two diagnoses. You did not focus on the Supreme Lord, you did not glorify the Supreme Lord, and you didn't sufficiently glorify the Supreme Lord. And now Narad Muni is going to share two types of literatures, crow-like literature and swan-like literature. And in these verses and purports and Prabhupada's lectures, we want to focus on these two personalities or two different categories, crow-like, swan-like. Our lives, our thinking, our activities, our focus, our association needs to align to the swan-like. We want to go from crow to swan. So let us hear about these two categories. Text 10. Nayat vachas chitra padam hare yasho jagat pavitram pragritnita karchichit tadvyasa sham tirtam ushan timanasa nayatrahamsa niraman yut shikshayam. Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered by saintly persons to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows. Since all perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there. Srila Vyasadeva is giving the standard. How does one, who selects, who decides on whether a scripture is glorious or not? It's the saintly persons. And if the saintly persons accept a scripture, it's glorious. If not, then it's considered a place of pilgrimage for crows. Prabhupada's purports. Crows and swans are not birds of the same feather because of their different mental attitudes. The fruit of workers or the passionate men are compared to crows, whereas the all-perfect saintly persons are compared to swans. The crows take pleasure in a place where garbage is thrown out, just as the passionate fruit of workers take pleasure in wine and women and places for gross sense pleasure. The swans do not take pleasure in the places where crows are assembled for conferences and meetings. They are instead seen in the atmosphere of natural scenic beauty, where there are transparent reservoirs of water nicely decorated with stems of lotus flowers in variegated colors of natural beauty. That is the difference between two classes of birds. Beautiful. We should absorb, digest, memorize these two categories. The crows, they take pleasure in garbage. And what is this garbage? Wine, pleasure in wine, women, and places of gross sense pleasures. Now we, as conditioned souls, we may have both these types, these mental attitudes. We may have crow mentality and we may have swan mentality. We want to move away from the crow mentality and go to the swan mentality. So if we are in any way, form, shape associated with the place of pilgrimage of crows, we want to desire and strive to go to the beautiful scenic place of the swans. Prabhupada then continues. Nature has influenced different species of lives with different mentalities, and it is not possible to bring them up into the same rank and file. So you can't bring a crow in the association of a swan. They just don't gel. Right? They're different birds, and you will not see that. You won't see crows flying with swans, and you won't see swans flying with crows, because they are different rank and file. Similarly, there are different kinds of literatures for different types of men of different mentality. Mostly the market literatures which attract men of crow's category are literatures containing refused remnants of sensuous topics. What choice of words? Refused remnants of sensuous topics. Topics which are sensuous, they're remnants, which means chewing the tooth. It's repeated, the same thing. Just, old wine in a new bottle. That's all. Sense gratification is there in animal life, in all species. So it's nothing new. And we experience this lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. It's nothing new that we're going to find in this world. They are generally known as mundane topics in relation with the gross body and subtle mind. They are full of subject matter described in decorative language, full of mundane similes and metaphorical arrangements. Yet, with all that, they do not glorify the Lord. Such poetry or prose on any subject matter is considered decoration of a dead body. Spiritually advanced men who are compared to the swans do not take pleasure in such dead literatures, which are sources of pleasure for men who are spiritually dead. These literatures, in the mode of passion and ignorance, are distributed under different labels, but they can hardly help the spiritual search of the human being, and thus the swan-like spiritually advanced men have nothing to do with them. Such spiritually advanced men are called also manasa, because they always keep up the standard of transcendental voluntary service to the Lord on the spiritual plane. This completely forbids fruitive activities for gross bodily sense gratification or subtle speculation on the material egoistic mind. So very, very clear in the direction, in the aspiration that we should be striving for by following spiritually advanced men. So if we want to become spiritually advanced, then it's very clear what scriptures what association we should strive for. And any mundane, sensuous association is basically for a dead body, decoration on a dead body. And it will kill us spiritually. No matter how spiritually vibrant we are, if we associate with crow-like material, we will become spiritually dead. So therefore, we have to be very careful. Prabhupada, in a purport 1510, continues, says, the last paragraph of the purport, social literary men, scientists, mundane poets, theoretical philosophers, and politicians who are completely absorbed in material advancement of sense pleasure are all dolls of the material energy. They take pleasure in a place where rejected subject matter are thrown. According to Swami Sridhar Swami, this is the pleasures of the prostitute hunters. But literatures which describe the glories of the Lord are enjoyed by the Paramhamsas who have grasped the essence of human activities. So very, very strong words. But as I said, Prabhupada is speaking from a platform of loving relation with Krishna. He's got a relationship with Krishna. Therefore, he's making it very clear, don't get caught in this trap. Don't get caught in this net of associating with garbage, with refuse of the crows. We have to get guidance from the Paramhamsas and understand. And once we get a taste and that experience, then we'll realize how profound, how wonderful these words are. In Prabhupada's lecture, Prabhupada gave his own experience that if you give me $1,000, still I shall not go to the cinema. Just like our students, Krishna conscious persons, if he's invited, come on, there is a nice picture in the cinema. No, he'll never go. He'll never go. Prabhupada chuckles. Because he has become Hamsa. He's not a crow that he'll go such places. Why? What is there? So Hamsa, here it is said, Tad Vyasasam Tirtam Utsanti Manasa. They reject, Shanti Manasa. Nayatra Hamsa Niramantya Ushikshaya. There was an incident in my life. I was, of course, at that time householder. So one of my friends, he was going to cinema with his family, and he saw me. I was in the street, and he immediately stopped his car, and he asked me that you come, we're going to cinema. So I refused. That if you give me $1,000, still I shall not go to cinema. So he dragged me. He took me to the cinema house, but I never entered. I came back, you see, because it was detestable. So Srila Prabhupada, because of his relationship with Krishna, is teaching us that we have to rise above these environments, these obstacles. And Prabhupada is sharing his own example that even if you paid him, he would not go to these crow pilgrimage places. This is advancement. In one lecture, Prabhupada says, you can measure your own advancement. If somebody says, how do I know I'm advancing? You don't need anyone to tell you how, if you're advancing. You can, or you don't even need to tell, Krishna doesn't even need to tell you if you're advancing, or your guru. No, you can gauge by your own whether you're advancing. How are you succumbing to paraphernalia, refuse, subject matter that's thrown in the place of pilgrimage for crows? Are you succumbing to sense gratificatory activities, paraphernalia? Because if that is the case, then we need to identify it, like Srila Vyasadeva, understand I have a problem, accept it, become introspective, address the issue. Prabhupada, one time, the devotees were, in the early days, there was, in New York, there was a donut shop, and the devotees would love to go to the donut shop. So they were conditioned like that. So they would get initiated, and then they would go to the donut shop and eat farmi grains. So one time Srila Prabhupada drove past the donut shop, and the devotees were there, eating donuts. And Prabhupada went past the shop, and they noticed Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada noticed them. And immediately they duck. They went underneath the counter to hide themselves. But Prabhupada already noticed. So then in the lecture, Srila Prabhupada, at the temple, Prabhupada said, we should not go, Prabhupada said, do not, we should not go to the donut shop. Okay? If you want to eat donuts, cook, offer it to Krishna, but do not go to that shop. That donuts, they're not meant for eating. Now there's a devotee that actually has a donut shop, all different varieties of donut shops in America. So this is how Prabhupada wanted us to dovetail or purify our lives. One other devotee was looking at Time magazine. Prabhupada said, we should not even look at the cover. It's contaminating. What about reading the subject matter? So we have to appreciate and understand this. When we understand this, then we can evaluate, oh, I still have these anarthas, I still have these desires to associate with these crow-like pilgrimage places. I need to work on that. Now, in using these two birds, Prabhupada in his lecture says, very beautifully, become a bee now. So he's comparing all the books written by Vyasadeva, including the Vedanta philosophy. He says that this is Vyayasam Tirtha. Vyayasam Tirtha. Vyayasam means crows. And the crows, their place of pleasure. Have you seen crows? In India, we have got many crows. In your country, crows are not very, but in India, the crows, they take pleasure in all nasty things. The crows, you will find they will take pleasure in a place where all nasty things are thrown, garbage. They'll pick out the garbage, find out where there is mucus, where there is pus, just like flies. They'll sit down on the stool. Makshikam Brahmaraka Icchanti. So those are the crows. Then Prabhupada says, Narada says, Chitra Padam Api, Sridhar Swami says, he comments that except describing glories of the Lord, any literature, any science, any contribution is simply jugglery or vocabulary. That's all, jugglery. Vak Chaturya. Vak means vocabulary, Chaturya means jugglery. So anything you find in this world, all that it is, it's word jugglery. Words are packed up, put in nice format, and we become attracted. Especially if it's not describing the glories of the Lord. Now Prabhupada shares with us. And the bees, they will try to take honey. Even in the animals, you see the honey. The bees will never come to the stew. And the ordinary flies, they never go to collect honey. Similarly, there are individuals in the birds, division in the beasts, division in human society. So you cannot expect that ordinary person will come to Krishna consciousness. You see, because they have been trained to become flies. They will taste too. You see? And then Prabhupada talks about at least give them chance, those who are seeking after honey. The modern education is to teach people to become flies, only stool, not hear Krishna consciousness. But you make it a honeycomb. Those who are seeking after honey, they will find. Here is something. You see, don't make it stool society. You see, make it a honey society. At least give chance those who are seeking after honey. So we want to be like the swans. We want to be like the honeybee. Trained our consciousness to focus on the honey. Yes, there is stool, there is garbage, and there is honey. The bees will never go to the stool and never go to the garbage, the dirt. They will only go to the flowers that have honey. So like that, we want to train our consciousness in every way to look for the honey. If there is no honey, you don't have any business in that place. Your business is to look for the honey-like glories of Krishna, the honey-like devotional services of the devotees, the honey-like activities of Krishna consciousness. Leave the stool, the garbage, the filth for the flies. We want to create the honey society, the honeycomb society. Therefore, there should be no crow-like mentality, crow-like scriptures, crow-like pilgrimage environment in the society that Srila Prabhupada desires. And it starts with our own consciousness. Then text 11, a very beautiful verse. Tatvag visargo janataga viplavo yasmin pratislokam abhadyavatyapi namanyan tasya yashonikan ka yashoni kitani yat shrinvanti gayanti grinati sadhava. On the other hand, that literature, which is full of the descriptions of transcendental glories of the name, fame, form, pastimes, etc., of the unlimited Supreme Lord, is a different creation, full of transcendental words, directed towards bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard and sung and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. So this verse Prabhupada quotes in the preface, very beautiful, describing the swan-like scriptures and the swan-like devotees who embrace these scriptures, even if they are imperfectly composed. So Prabhupada gives a lengthy purport. It is a qualification of great thinkers to pick up the best from the worst. It is said that an intelligent man should pick up nectar from a stock of poison, should accept gold even from a filthy place, should accept good and qualified wife even from an obscure family, and should accept a good lesson even from a man or from a teacher who comes from the untouchables. These are some of the ethical instructions for everyone in every place without exception. So this is beautiful, beautiful instruction. Srila Prabhupada himself, when in America, Prabhupada had a stroke, and they tried to get doctors, but doctors were off because it was a public holiday. And eventually they got one doctor, but the doctor was drunk. And the drunk doctor came to see Srila Prabhupada and diagnosed Srila Prabhupada, and he told Srila Prabhupada, "You're unhealthy, you need to go for morning walks." And the devotees were very upset with the doctor. They were not happy. But Prabhupada, he took that instruction to heart. He didn't consider, "Oh, you're a drunk doctor, what you know?" No, he took it to heart and he started having morning walks. And from that morning walks, we got so much nectar. So this is the point. We should take the valuable lessons, valuable things, even from environments that are not appropriate. We need to develop this. And this is linked to the example of the bee. The bee will only search and find the honey and leave everything else. But a saint is far above the level of an ordinary man. He is always absorbed in glorifying the Supreme Lord, because by broadcasting the holy name and fame of the Supreme Lord, the polluted atmosphere of the world will change. And as a result of propagating the transcendental literatures like Srimad Bhagavatam, people will become sane in their transactions. While preparing this commentation on this particular stanza of Srimad Bhagavatam, we have a crisis before us. Our neighboring friend, China, has attacked the border of India with a militaristic spirit. We have practically no business in the political field, yet we see that previously they were both China and India, and they both lived peacefully for centuries without ill feelings. The reason is that they lived those days in an atmosphere of God consciousness, and every country over the surface of the world was God-fearing, pure-hearted and simple. And there was no question of political diplomacy. Here, there is no cause of quarrel between two countries. China and India over land, which is not very suitable for habitation, and certainly there is no cause of quarrel between the two countries, China and India, over land, which is not very suitable for habitation. And certainly there is no cause of fighting on this issue. But due to the age of quarrel, Kali, which we have discussed, there is always a chance of quarrel on slight provocations. This is due not to the issue in question, but to the polluted atmosphere of this age. Systematically, there is propaganda by a section of people to stop glorification of the name and fame of the Supreme Lord. So there are people that know that if we allow this to continue, they will destroy our plan. And therefore, there is a systematic propaganda to destroy any glorification of the name, fame of the Lord. At the same time, Prabhupada, as the ambassador of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his mission is to establish and fight this propaganda through spreading the glories of the Lord. Therefore, there is a great need for disseminating the message of Srimad Bhagavatam all over the world. It is the duty of every responsible Indian to broadcast the transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the world, to do all the most good, as well as to bring about the desired peace in the world. Because India has failed in her duty by neglecting this responsible work, there is so much quarrel and trouble all over the world. We are confident that if the transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam is received only by leading men of the world, certainly there will be a change of heart, and naturally the people in general will follow them. Very, very important instruction by Srila Prabhupada, and we'll see if we dedicate ourselves and committed to Srila Prabhupada's advice here, we will see there will be a transformation. To the degree we do this, to that degree we will be sheltered. The mass of people in general are tools in the hands of the modern politicians and leaders of the people. If there is a change of heart of the leaders only, certainly there will be a radical change in the atmosphere of the world. We know that our honest attempt to present this great literature, conveying transcendental messages for reviving the God consciousness of people in general and re-spiritualizing the world atmosphere, is fraught with many difficulties. Our presenting this matter in adequate language, especially a foreign language, will certainly fail. And there will be so many literal discrepancies despite our honest attempt in presenting it in a proper way. But we are sure that with all our faults in this connection, the seriousness of the subject matter will be taken into consideration. And the leaders of the society will still accept this due to its being an honest attempt to glorify the Almighty God. When there is fire in a house, the inmates of the house go out to get help from the neighbors who may be foreigners, And yet, without knowing the language, the victims of the fire express themselves, and the neighbors understand the need, even though not expressed in the same language. The same spirit of cooperation is needed. Broadcast the transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam to all the populated throughout the polluted atmosphere of the world. After all, it is a technical science of spiritual values, and thus we are concerned with the techniques and not with the language. If the techniques of this great literature are understood by the people of the world, there will be success. So the language is secondary. There may be errors, there may be challenges, there may be difficulties. In Prabhupada, English wasn't his first language. Yet he presented such valuable information, giving us the glorification of the Supreme Lord. And the more the leaders accept, because the masses follow the leaders. So if we can convince the leaders, then the masses will be helped. Naturally, we need to first convince ourselves. Once we convinced completely, then we can help and inspire and convince others. When there are too many materialistic activities by people in general all over the world, there is no wonder that a person or a nation attacks another person or a nation on slight provocation. That is the rule of this age of Kali or Quarrel. The atmosphere is already polluted with corruption of all descriptions, and everyone knows it well. There are so many unwanted literatures full of materialistic ideas of sense gratification. In many countries, their bodies appointed by the state to detect and censor obscene literature. This means that neither the government nor the responsible leaders of the public want such literature, yet it is in the marketplace because people want it for sense gratification. The people in general want to read. That is a natural instinct. But because their minds are polluted, they want such literature. Under the circumstance, transcendental literature like Srimad Bhagavatam will not only diminish the activities of corrupt minds of people in general, but also it will supply food for their hankering after reading some interesting literature. In the beginning, they may not like it because one suffering from jaundice is reluctant to take sugar candy. But we should know that sugar candy is the only remedy for jaundice. Similarly, let there be systematic propaganda for the popularizing reading of Bhagavad-Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, which will act like sugar candy for the jaundice-like condition of sense gratification. When men have a taste for this literature and other literatures, which are catering poison to society, will then automatically cease. We are sure, therefore, that everyone in human society will welcome Srimad Bhagavatam, even though it is now presented with so many faults, for it is recommended by Sri Narada, who has very kindly appeared in this chapter. You can see how Srila Prabhupada, he's writing, but his connection, his relationship is very personal. Narada Muni has kindly appeared in this chapter because it's not just words, it's not just ink on a paper, but there's a personal relationship there. There's a personal experience there. And by propagation of the Srimad Bhagavatam, yes, in the beginning, it's purifying because it's like getting cured from the jaundice, like sugar candy, it's bitter. But that's the only medication, hearing the glories of the Supreme Lord. Krishna is Bhavagrahi. Prabhupada in his lecture shares some very wonderful points that even grammatically incorrect, it can produce a revolution. On the other hand, other kind literature, what is that? Tadvag visargo janatago viplavo yasmin pratislokam abhadyavatavi. A literature presented to people, to the public for reading, which are even grammatically incorrect, but because there is glorification of the Lord, it can produce revolution. It can purify the whole human society. This is the power. We have to have we have to have the firm faith that this is the case. And if we associate with the Bhagavatam, we will become purified. There'll be a revolution in our own consciousness. And then we can take it forward with the family, with the society, with the nation, with the country, with the world, with the universe, with the whole planet. But it starts with us. So many times he has uttered Krishna and Chaitanya, so it is all right. Prabhupada talks about his Guru Maharaj. My Guru Maharaj, when he was selecting articles to be published in the Harmonist, if he sees simply that there is several times the written, the writer has written Krishna or Lord Chaitanya, like that, he passes immediately. All right, it's all right. Laughter. It's all right. That so many times he has uttered Krishna Chaitanya, so it is all right. Prabhupada chuckles. So similarly, even if we present our back to Godhead or any other literature in broken language, it does not matter because the glorification of the Lord is there. So the content is immaterial. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj was not interested in the content, what you wrote, how many times Krishna is mentioned, how many times Lord Chaitanya is mentioned. That means how many times the Lord's name is glorified. Again, focus on the glorification. And he selected the articles according to the number of times Krishna's name is mentioned. Then Prabhupada talks about Viplava means it kills, because disinfectant. For example, we can give. Now, how does Krishna consciousness movement is disinfectant? That those who have seriously taken to it, they immediately stop the sinful infections, the four principles, regular principles, illicit sex life, intoxication, gambling, meat eating, how disinfected it is. Many people, they're shocked, they're surprised. How can we follow these four regular principles? No meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication. And in the beginning, it may be difficult, but then we don't even think about it as one advances. Because of the power of Krishna consciousness, it's a disinfectant. It disinfects us from these different sinful activities. And like that, it will disinfect every subtle and gross impurity from your heart. So that none of these impurities exist. Then we can embellish our heart with the glories of the Supreme Lord. This will then attract Krishna to come to your heart and take residence. And Krishna knows our intention. Therefore, Prabhupada says, just like you are chanting, you are the mantras, because it is not your language. So sometimes it appears broken, just like Guru. Sometimes you say Guru, but Guru means cow and Guru means spiritual master. So the difference of the meaning is vast. Prabhupada chuckles. The spiritual master is not a cow or bull, laughs. But sometimes because it is not your language, but that doesn't matter, because Bhavagrahi Janardana, Krishna is within you. He knows what you want to chant. Therefore, he takes the meaning of Guru, not Guru. Even if he is spoken as Guru. That doesn't matter. Bhavagrahi Janardana. He, Krishna, knows that what you are actually, just like I know that although you are speaking Guru as Guru, I don't take offense because I know that your desire is something else. I do not protest, love. That you are addressing me as Guru. I am not Guru, laughter. So that is not a fault. Like we know many devotees, like in China, different places, they can't chant Krishna's name properly. But the sincerity is there, the intention is there. And Krishna is Bhavagrahi Janardana. He is in the heart and he knows, and therefore he gives them the result. Similarly, Prabhupada's intention of helping this world connect with Krishna, giving them true peace. And even though there may be imperfections in his compilation of his bhakti and purport, still Krishna knows the intention and the recipients will get the desired results. So our life in relation to these two verses that we covered, we have to see, where do I have crow-like tendencies? And I definitely, as a conditioned soul, I may be 90% crow-like, but I want to move towards swan-like. This is the journey we want to take. So I may start with 90% crow-like and 10% swan-like, but I want to advance so that I can now become 20% crow-like and 80% swan-like. Or as Prabhupada says, bee-like. So this is the journey. And I can do it, in every avenue of my life. I can move in this direction. I want to become like the swan, because the swan have the ability of taking a mixture of milk and water, and when they drink the milk and leave the water. So as Prabhupada says, throughout our life, in every area, we want to extract the nectar, the glories of Krishna, that which is valuable, and leave everything else, and don't focus on that. Right? In this way, we can perfect our life and help others perfect their lives. Then the last section, verses 12 to 16. Narad Muni now discusses bhakti is the only valuable asset. Our relationship with Krishna is the only valuable asset. So there are people that want to avoid Krishna. They're not interested in Krishna. We don't want to be in that category. And there are those who are fanatical about a relationship with Krishna. They'll say, if you don't have a relationship with Hare Krishna, you're an animal. If you don't, practice devotional service, you're doomed, etc. But they're fanatical in terms of their propaganda, but they don't have a relationship with Krishna. We want to experience a relationship with Krishna. We don't want just theory. We don't want devotional service and Krishna consciousness to be lip service or to be mental service or just to be physical service. No, we want a heart-to-heart relationship. We want to experience Krishna. And that's a journey. And that's what Srimad Bhagavatam is going to offer us by constantly associating and following the instructions given by the devotees, by the Paramhamsas in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So text 12, Narad Muni says, Naishkaramyapya achyutabhava varjitam na sobhate jnanam alam niranjanam kuta puna shashvat abhadram ishware nacharpitam karma yadapyakaranam. Knowledge of self-realization, even though free from all material affinity, does not look well if devoid of the conception of the infallible God. What then is the use of fruitive activities which are naturally painful from the very beginning and transient by nature if they are not utilized for devotional service of the Lord? So now Narad Muni is sharing why Srila Vyasadev's contribution is not ultimately beneficial. Prabhupada in the purport says, as referred to above, not only ordinary literature devoid of transcendental glorification of the Lord are condemned, but also Vedic literature and speculation on the subject of impersonal Brahman when they are devoid of devotional service. When speculation on impersonal Brahman is condemned on above ground, then what to speak of ordinary fruit of work, which is not meant to fulfill the aim of devotional service? Such speculative knowledge and fruit of work cannot lead one to the goal of perfection. Fruit of work in which almost all people in general are engaged is always painful either in the beginning or at the end. It can be painful only when it can be fruitful only when made subservient to devotional service of the Lord. In Bhagavad-Gita also it is confirmed that the result of such fruit of work may be offered for the service of the Lord. Otherwise, it leads to material bondage. The bona fide enjoyer of the fruit of work is the personality of Godhead, and thus, when it is engaged for the sense gratification of the living beings, it becomes an acute source of trouble. So very, very clear, Prabhupada's purport and Narad Muni's instruction. Achyuta bhava varjitam. if it's not connected, if we're not having a relationship with the Supreme Lord, if we're not experiencing the emotion of connection with the Supreme Lord, then it is not beneficial. Nishkarmya means detached work. So if detached work, which we know in Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna gives different evolution. Detached work is more glorious than attached work. But even detached work, even transcendental knowledge, even having no designation, these are elevated positions. But all these different positions, they are not fruitful when not connected with the Supreme Lord, when one does not use them in a loving relationship with the Supreme Lord. What to talk about fruitive activities, which is what Srila Vyasadeva propounded in the Vedas through the Mahabharata and all the other Vedic scriptures. So this is the standard that we should use everything to our benefit to cultivate a loving emotional relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then there is fruit. Text 13. Ato Mahabhaga Bhavan Amoga Drit Suchi Shrava Satyarato Dritavrata Urukramas Yakilas Bandamuktaye Samadhinanu Smarantad Vicheshtitam. O Vyasadeva, your vision is completely perfect. Your good fame is spotless. You are firm in vow and situated in truthfulness. And thus, you can think of the pastimes of the Lord in trance for the liberation of the people in general from all material bondage. So Vyasadeva is perfectly qualified. Exemplary, he is exemplary. He's got the correct characteristics, the qualifications. And now Narad Muni is instructing it. You think of the pastimes of the Lord in trance. That means experience the pastimes of the Lord. And when you compile, when you glorify those pastimes, then for the benefit of all people, they will become liberated from all material bondage. Prabhupada in the purport says, people in general have a taste for literatures by instinct. They want to hear and read from the authorities, something about the unknown. But their taste is exploited by unfortunate literatures which are full of the subject matter of satisfaction of material senses. Such literatures contain different kinds of mundane poems and philosophical speculation, more or less under the influence of Maya, ending in sense gratification. These literatures, although worthless in the true sense of the term, are variously decorated to attract the attention of less intelligent men. Thus, the attracted living entities are more and more entangled in material bondage without hope of liberation for thousands and thousands of generations. Shri Narad Rishi, being the best among the Vaishnavas, is compassionate towards such unfortunate victims of worthless literatures, and thus he advises Srila Vyasadeva to compose transcendental literature, which is not only attractive, but can also actually bring liberation from all kinds of bondage. Srila Vyasadeva or his representatives are qualified because they are rightly trained to see things in the true perspective. Srila Vyasadeva and his representatives are pure in thought due to their spiritual enlightenment, fixed in their vows due to their devotional service, determined to deliver the fallen souls rotting in material activities. Fallen souls are very eager to receive novel information every day, and the transcendentalists like Vyasadeva and Narad Muni can supply such eager people in general with unlimited news from the spiritual worlds. In the Bhagavad-Gita, it is said that the material world is only a part of the whole creation, and that this earth is only a fragment of the whole material world. So if the activities, the knowledge, one's work, one's knowledge, one's literatures, if they're not connected to the Supreme Lord, then the action and reaction in this world will continue. And that means bondage continues. Therefore, the Bhagavatam, the glories of Krishna will liberate, will free one And there is no lack of that glorification. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj would publish every I think every second day, he would publish a newsletter on the glories of the Lord. And one time, he was questioned that, how are you going to continue with publishing a newsletter like this? And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said, I can publish every 2 seconds, a newsletter about the glories of Krishna, because the glories of Krishna are unlimited. So there's no lack of glorification. Prabhupada says, just consider the newspapers. So many newspapers are there every day. Different types of different companies are producing newspaper. Every day they're producing news of the material world. And the material world is only 1/4 of the spiritual world. So consider how much news there is of the spiritual world. There's so many pastimes happening. And here we are in the material world, caught up in these unfortunate events of this material world. We need to develop the intense greed to enter into the eternal news of the Supreme Lord. We want to enter into the eternal pastimes of the Supreme Lord and be part of that news, not part of this mundane material worldly news. The perfect source. There are thousands and thousands of literally men all over the world, and they have created many, many thousands of literary work for the information of people in general for thousands and thousands of years. Unfortunately, none of them have brought peace and tranquility on the earth. And we can see this is the truth. We are in the 21st century. We've gone through generations and generations and generations. We have advanced technologically so to a degree that's incomprehensible to people of the past. Scientifically, in so many ways we've advanced. Yet, we find that there is no tranquility on the earth. There is war. People are suffering. There's famine, there's drought, there's riots. Why? Prabhupada says, this is due to a spiritual vacuum in those literatures. Therefore, the Vedic literatures, especially the Bhagavad-Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, are especially recommended to suffering humanity to bring about the desired effect of liberation from the pangs of material civilization, which is eating the vital part of human energy. So people are going to get more and more frustrated. Why? Because your energy is getting drained. You can only tolerate things to a certain degree. People become more and more frustrated. The problem is when they become more and more frustrated, they are not led in the proper direction to a proper solution. The solution that they embrace is more detrimental to the problem, as we've discussed. The right solution is Bhagavad-Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. The Bhagavad-Gita is the spoken message of the Lord himself, recorded by Vyasadeva, and the Srimad Bhagavatam is a transcendental narration of the activities of the same Lord Krishna, which alone can satisfy the hankering desires of the living being for eternal peace and liberation from miseries. Which alone, nothing else, can satisfy the hankering desire of the living being for eternal peace and liberation from miseries. Srimad Bhagavatam, therefore, is meant for all the living beings, all over the universe, for total liberation from all kinds of material bondage. How glorious, how wonderful. Srimad Bhagavatam, therefore, is meant for all living beings, not just human beings, not just Hindus, not just Muslims, not black, white, no, all living beings. And all over the universe, not just South Africa, not just India, not just this planet, all over the universe, for total liberation, not just some partial liberation, from all kinds of material bondage. It's the perfect solution for everyone. And we are blessed to have Srimad Bhagavatam in our midst by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Such transcendental narrations of the pastimes of the Lord can be described only by liberated souls like Vyasadeva and his bona fide representatives, who are completely merged in the transcendent loving service of the Lord. Only to such devotees do the pastimes of the Lord and their transcendental nature become automatically manifest by dint of devotional service. I will read that again. Only to such devotees do the pastimes of the Lord and their transcendental nature become automatically manifest by the dint of devotional service. So it's not just knowledge. It's not about knowing. It's not just education. It's about experiencing. It's about entering into these pastimes. It's about manifestation. These pastimes will manifest to us. But it's now been given to us in a form for us to become purified so that we become qualified to enter into these pastimes. No one else can either know or describe the acts of the Lord, even if they speculate on the subject for many, many years. The descriptions of the Bhagavatam are so precise and accurate that whatever has been predicted in this great literature about 5,000 years ago is now exactly happening. Therefore, the vision of the author comprehends past, present, and future. Such liberated persons as Vyasadeva are perfect not only by the power of the vision and wisdom, but also in oral reception, in thinking, feeling, and all other sense activities. A liberated person possesses perfect senses, and with perfect senses only can one serve the sense proprietor, Rishikesh, Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam, therefore, is the perfect description of the all-perfect personality of Godhead by the all-perfect personality Srila Vyasadeva, compiler of the Vedas. And we are given this all-perfect description of the all-perfect personality, which was given by the all-perfect Srila Vyasadeva to us by the all-perfect presentation of Srila Prabhupada through his Bhaktivedanta purpose. And if we desire to become all-perfect, we have the solution right amidst us. So our duty, Prabhupada says, is to glorify. Now, you are Mahabhag. You are most fortunate man. Vyasadeva is not ordinary. Just see, Narad is his spiritual master. He's not ordinary man. And besides that, he's taken as incarnation of God, Mahabhag. Atho Mahabhag, Bhagavan Amorgadrik. Your vision is without any sin, because he has dedicated his life to present the Vedic literatures for the benefit of human society, that they have forgotten God. Krishna, let me help. Therefore, he is trying to give all this Vedic literature. That is the duty of all devotees, to give literature so that people may take benefit out of it. Then Prabhupada continues in his lecture, Samadhina, in Samadhi, in trance, Samadhina, Anusmara. Here the same thing, Anusmara. There, as I told you before, Anu means following, just like Vyasadeva. Even after so many qualifications, he has a spiritual master, Narada. Not that because he's incarnation of God, not that because he's so learned, so great scholar, Suchirabha, and dedicated his life for the benefit of human society. So many good qualifications. Still, you see, practically, he has got a spiritual master. And Narada is giving instructions. So we need guidance in spiritual life. And Prabhupada is guiding us systematically. It's taken so much time to give us his guidance, this instruction. If we do not heed these instructions, if we do not embrace these instructions, it will be so unfortunate. So we have to glorify Krishna. This is the focus. Narad Muni is encouraging Vyasadeva to glorify. Prabhupada is encouraging us to embrace glorification of Krishna. And we see Prabhupada's own personal example of how he constantly glorified Krishna. We can see throughout Prabhupada's purports, he didn't have to say, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He could just have said Krishna. He could have just said, in fact, not even Krishna. Even Krishna is 5 words. He could have just said God. In so many of his writings and lectures, he could have just said God. Short, it's quick, to the point, God. finish. Or Lord, done. But no, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Again and again. He could have just said, chant Hare Krishna. No, chant Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare. Prabhupada was glorifying the Supreme Lord. His whole life is a glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. When Srila Prabhupada, in the early days, they had arranged a program in Hudson Hall, and they had advertised extensively, and then came for the program. Prabhupada went to the hall, and there was like practically half a dozen people in the hall, huge hall, and just half a dozen people. And Prabhupada sat and gave the talk, as vibrant and as he would do, without consideration of the people, number of people there. And after the talk, the devotees went to Srila Prabhupada and apologized to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, we're so sorry. We tried our best, but people didn't turn out. People didn't come. The turnout was very bad. There were just like half a dozen people. And Prabhupada, Prabhupada asked them, what do you mean a dozen? The whole hall was full. Didn't you see? And Narad Muni was there, Vyasadeva was there, the Gandharvas were there, the sages were there, Lord Brahma was there, Lord Shiva was there, Hanuman was there. You didn't see? So when Prabhupada was giving his Bhagavad, his glorification of the Lord, the sadhus, the Paramhamsa, the swan-like devotees, they there. The devotees, they were seeing the externals. Prabhupada was glorifying Krishna. Yes, and why they were attracted? Because Prabhupada was not interested in the number of people there. Oh, I'll only speak if I get 100 people. No, Prabhupada is interested in glorifying Krishna, not in the numbers. Another time in France, the devotees had arranged a whole program. And this was like 1,000 plus seater, huge hall. And like in New York also, in America also, they arranged the program, and only 40 people came for the program. So you can imagine this whole huge hall, like 1,000 plus seater, and only 40 people. And the devotees were also again upset. And they went to Prabhupada and they apologized to Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was very sorry of the outcome. And Prabhupada said that I will glorify to the sky, I will shout to the stars and the moon and to the sun. I will tell in all directions. I will sing the glories of Krishna, Sri Krishna. I will sing loudly that Krishna is the most attractive, compassionate, Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because ultimately, I want a certificate from Krishna, not from a pack of donkeys. So that's why you see a picture of the donkey there. So this was Prabhupada's consciousness. He knew the focus, the goal is to glorify Krishna. We're not interested in anything else. If we can please Krishna, our life is perfect. So that is the focus. Text 14. Tatonyata kichana yad vivakshata pritag drishyastad krita rupa nama bhi nakarhichit kwapicha dushtita matir labeta vatahata no riva vas padam. Whatever you desire to describe that is separated in vision from the Lord simply reacts with different forms and names to agitate the mind, as the wind agitates a boat which has no resting place. Purport. Srila Vyasadeva is the editor of all descriptions of the Vedic literatures, and thus he has described transcendental realization in different ways. namely by fruitive activities, speculative knowledge, mystic powers, and devotional service. Besides that, in his various Puranas, he has recommended the worship of so many demigods in different forms and names. The result is that people in general are puzzled how to fix their minds in the service of the Lord. They are always disturbed about finding the real path of self-realization. Srila Naradev is stressing this particular defect in the Vedic, which is compiled by Vyasadeva. And thus, he is trying to emphasize describing everything in relation with the Supreme Lord and no one else. In fact, there is nothing existing, there is nothing existent except the Lord. The Lord is manifested in different expansions. He is the root of the complete tree. He is the stomach of the complete body. Pouring water on the root is the right process to water the tree, as much as feeding the stomach supplies energy to all parts of the body. Therefore, Srila Vyasadeva should not have compiled any Puranas other than Bhagavad Purana, because a slight deviation from that may create havoc for self-realization. If a slight deviation can create such havoc, then what to speak of deliberate expansion of the ideas separate from the absolute truth, personality of God. The most defective part of worshipping demigods is that it creates a definite conception of pantheism, ending disastrously in many religious sects, detrimental to the progress of the principles of the Bhagavatam, which alone can give the accurate direction for self-realization in eternal relationship with the personality of Godhead by devotional service in transcendental love. The example of the boat disturbed by whirling wind is suitable in this respect. The diverted mind of the pantheist can never reach the perfection of self-realization due to the disturbed condition of selection of objects. So slight deviation, just like if I deviate 1 degree, that 1 degree over a long time can be such a great deviation from the actual destination. So Srila Vyasadeva, even though he had a good intention and there may have been a reason, but practically confused people. And we see that people are confused about, they got so many demigods to worship. And then when you tell them worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they say, but this is how I brought up. Won't the demigods get upset, etc. They find it very difficult with all the rituals and demigod worship to actually give up that and surrender to Supreme Lord. Prabhupada in his lectures says, just like you cannot derive any benefit or you cannot sit down very nicely in a tottering ship. So if you keep yourself always tottering, that stage, I mean to say, what is called a tilting stage of life can be stopped only by devotional service. Krishna consciousness. Evam prasana manaso Bhagavati Bhagavad Bhakti Yogata. One has to make his life tranquil. How is this possible? By this Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, it is not possible. We have to disinfect us, counteract all the results of sinful activities. So only Krishna consciousness is the real solution. It's not a sectarian mission. It's not like any other organization that comes up with some focus, some desire, some mission. No, this mission is the solution for every single problem. It is the only solution that can uproot every illness and take us back to the spiritual world. In the purport to 10.13.61, Prabhupada says, the word agada bodham, meaning full of unlimited knowledge, is significant in this verse. The Lord's knowledge is unlimited, and therefore one cannot touch where it ends, just as one cannot measure the ocean. What is the extent of our intelligence in comparison to the vast expanse of water in the ocean? On my passage to America, how insignificant the ship was, like a matchbox in the middle of the ocean. Krishna's intelligence resembles the ocean. one cannot imagine how vast it is. The best course, therefore, is to surrender to Krishna. Don't try to measure Krishna. So don't try to understand things with our intelligence or overly try to understand everything about Krishna, because it's inconceivable. Like now we see Srila Vyasadeva is Krishna's literal incarnation, so that means Krishna arranged and empowered Vyasadeva to write the Vedas. Yet Vyasadeva was despondent, and now Narad Muni is chastising him why he didn't write Bhagavatam. So why didn't Krishna inspire Vyasadeva to write the Bhagavatam in the first place? Because if he did write the Bhagavatam in the first place, we wouldn't have appreciated the Bhagavatam as much as we appreciate it now by the experience of Srila Vyasadeva. So there's many reasons. So Krishna's knowledge is unlimited. The key factor is best cause is surrender. When you surrender to Krishna, then Krishna will reveal whatever he wants us to know through a loving relationship. And in that way, we'll be able to experience Krishna. The material world, in teachings of Queen Kunti, let there be calamities, Prabhupada says, the material world is full of dangers. Padam padam yat vipadam. For example, if one is on the ship, if one is on the ocean, one may have a very strong ship, but that ship can never be safe because one is at sea. At any time, there may be dangers. The Titanic was safe, but on its first voyage, it sunk, and many important men lost their lives. So danger, it must be, because we are in a dangerous position. This material world itself is dangerous. Therefore, our business now should be to cross the sea of danger as soon as possible. As long as we are at sea, we are in a dangerous position. However strong our ship may be, that's a fact. But we should not be disturbed by the sea waves. Instead, we should just try to cross over the sea and get to the other side. That should be our business. And how do we do that? By staying on the ship that Srila Prabhupada built. The ship, which is ISKCON. But what is this ISKCON? This ISKCON is a mission. It's a movement where Srila Prabhupada focused on glorification of Krishna. That is this society, not any other business. It's a society of the International Society for Krishna consciousness, for us to become conscious of Krishna through glorification of Krishna, to propagating the glories of Krishna. And by being situated on this boat of glorification of Krishna, we will be able to sail across this ocean, this dangerous ocean, very, very swiftly, very, very quickly. That is our business. Text 15. Jugupsitam dharma kriten nusha satam svabhava raktasya mahan vyatikrama yadvyakato dharmo iti tara stota stito na manyate tasya nivaranam janam. The people in general are naturally inclined to enjoy, and you have encouraged them in that way. You have encouraged them in that way in the name of religion. This is verily condemned and is quite unreasonable. Because they are guided under your instruction, they will accept such activities in the name of religion and will hardly care for prohibitions. So Narad Muni is also sharing now further why what Vyasadeva gave is actually not going to help the ultimate cause. And the ultimate cause is Krishna and pure devotional service. Now, it's not that what Narad Muni gave, what Vyasadeva gave is completely wrong. We have to also we have to be very careful. What Narad Muni, what Vyasadeva gave is perfect. But Prabhupada is going to share with us why Narad Muni is directing Srila Vyasadeva in this direction. So, Srila Vyasadev's compilation of different Vedic literature on the basis of regulated performance of fruitive activities, as depicted in the Mahabharata and other literatures, is condemned herewith by Srila Narada. The human beings, by long material association, life after life, have a natural inclination by practice to endeavor to lord it over material nature. They have no sense of responsibility of human life. This human form of life is a chance to get out of the clutches of the illusory matter. The Vedas are meant for going back to Godhead, going back home. To revolve in the cycle of transmigration is a series of lives numbering 8,400,000. Is an imprisoned life for the condemned conditioned souls. So we are condemned. The human form of life is a chance to get out of this imprisoned life. And as such, the only occupation of the human being is to re-establish his lost relationship with God. Under the circumstance, one should never be encouraged in making a plan for sense enjoyment in the name of religious functions. Such diversions of human energy results in a misguided civilization. Srila Vyasadeva is the authority in the Vedic explanations in the Mahabharata, etc. And his encouragement in sense enjoyment in some form or other is a great barrier for spiritual advancement, because the people in general will not agree to renounce material activities which hold them in material bondage. At a certain stage of human civilization, when such material activities in the name of religion, as sacrificing animals in the name of yajna, were too much rampant, the Lord incarnated himself as Buddha and declined the authority of the Vedas in order to stop animal sacrifice in the name of religion. This was foreseen by Narada, and therefore he condemned such literatures. The flesh-eating eaters still continue to perform animal sacrifice before some demigod or goddess in the name of religion, because in some of the Vedic literatures, such regulated sacrifices are recommended. They are so recommended to discourage flesh-eating, but gradually the purpose of such religious activity is forgotten and the slaughterhouses become prominent. This is because foolish materialistic men do not care to listen to others who are actually in the position to explain the Vedic rites. So we can see how if the knowledge that Srila Vyasadeva gave in the Vedas, if one doesn't receive that knowledge in proper guidance, then it will practically deviate the people and complicate the life and engage them in more sinful activities and bind them. Therefore, Narad Muni is suggesting that you need to focus on the glorification of Krishna, and you need to focus on the glories of bhakti and reveal the power and the potency of bhakti and direct them on one path, which is devotional service. That way they will be relieved. Now, we find that Srila Vyasadeva, he also gave the Vedas because there are different people on different levels. And his idea was to slowly direct them gradually according to their propensity and bring them closer and closer to the Supreme Lords, acting like a bridge. So sometimes we also may want to build a bridge of those who are sinful, who are not ready to surrender to Supreme Lord, and there is a bridge to bring them into a full Krishna consciousness. So that is there, and we can do that in terms of bridge preaching, to gradually bring people. The challenge is that we don't want to build a bridge strategy and get caught up in the strategy that we forget about our own relationship with Krishna. Just like someone may present yoga for bridge preaching. And while presenting yoga for bridge preaching, because people are into yoga, they're into health, etc. So now you set up a bridge preaching program for yoga, and you forget the goal and get caught and you fall on the opposite side. Instead of bringing people, they drag you. So we have to be very careful in how we use the principle of Yukta Vairagya. It could be astrology, palmistry, health, so many things, motivational speaking. These are bridge preaching projects. Just like Vyasadeva was trying to create a bridge preaching mechanism through the Vedas to attract people systematically. But we have to be very careful that we don't build a bridge going in the wrong direction, and we don't get caught up on the bridge, and we don't use the bridge in the wrong direction, that we go in the opposite direction. So we have to be very careful. Curing the disease. In the Vedas, it is distinctly said that the perfection of life is never to be attained either by voluminous work or by accumulation of wealth, or even by increasing the population. But it is so attained only by renunciation. The materialistic men do not care to listen to such injunctions. According to them, the so-called renounced order of life is meant for those who are unable to earn their livelihood because of some corporeal defects, or persons who have failed to achieve prosperity in family life. In the histories like the Mahabharata, of course, there are topics on transcendental subjects along with material topics. The Bhagavad-Gita is there in the Mahabharata. The whole idea of the Mahabharata culminates in the ultimate instructions of the Bhagavad-Gita, but one should relinquish all other engagements and should engage oneself solely and fully in surrendering unto the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna. But men with materialistic tendencies are more attracted to the politics, economics, and philanthropic activities mentioned in the Mahabharata than to the principal topic, namely Bhagavad-Gita. This compromising spirit of Vyasadeva is directly condemned by Narad, who advises him to directly proclaim that the prime necessity of human life is to realize one's relationship with the Lord and thus surrender unto him without delay. So Narad Muni is understanding that there are going to be crows, and there's also going to be swans. Now the crows who are engrossed in sense gratification, we want to help the crows cross the bridge and become swans. And therefore the Vedas are there for them, to that Mahabharata and all the teachings that Vyasadeva gave. The swans, Paramahamsas, they know that there are going to be those crows who will quickly get the message that they need to become swan-like, and they'll accept very quickly this goal of prime necessity of human life is to realize one's eternal relation with Supreme Lord and surrender unto him without delay. So they don't want this gradual they without delay. Yes, I understand this, I accept this, I want to surrender. Next, for them, Narad Muni is telling Srila Vyasadeva, you compile Srimad Bhagavatam that has only the glorification of Krishna, so that those crows who get this message very quickly and they want to perfect their lives very quickly, gradually over lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes, they'll progress. Not good. There will be those, well, it's good for them, but not good for those who want perfection very, very quickly. So in this way, Narad Muni is helping Srila Vyasadeva benedict us through Srimad Bhagavatam. A patient suffering from a particular type of malady is almost always inclined to accept eatables which are forbidden to him. The expert physician does not make any compromise with the patient by allowing him to take partially what he should not take at all. In Bhagavad-Gita, it is also said that a man attached to fruit of work should not be discouraged from his occupation, for gradually he may be elevated to the position of self-realization. This is sometimes applicable for those who are only dry empiric philosophers without spiritual realization, but those who are in devotional line did not be always so advised. So Prabhupada's focus was cure the illness. once and for all. Therefore, surrender to the Supreme Lord. So the object is Shri Krishna. Prabhupada in his lectures said, Vyasadeva may have said that, sir, I've already compiled so many books, 18 Puranas, Mahabharata, even Vedanta Sutra. So they are not sufficient. They are not sufficient literature to revive Krishna consciousness. So in reply to that, Narad says, Jugup sitam dharma krite nusashata. So Narad Muni says that you have described these things for which a man has got natural propensity in religious form. Jugupsita dharme krita nusachata. You are the leader of the Shastras. You are right. You are writing Shastras. People follow you. So example, now Vyasadeva gave Kama Sutra, astrology, Vastu, and people get caught up in this. Right? They think that is, the goal. So they get sidetracked. So giving, all these aspects, unfortunately, because people are interested in sense gratification, that in the is a religion, they will not make further progress. They will stick to that principle. So therefore, it is abominable. But the objective is not Krishna. Objective is material happiness. That sort of religiosity or following the regular principle will not help. So Vyasadeva says, so Srila Narad Muni is saying, Jugupsita, this is abominable. Because if you simply stick to that principle, your authority, people will understand that this is religion, nothing more. Prabhupada gives the example, just like you in a boat and you may be rowing, but if you don't remove the anchor of sense gratification, you could be acting, you could be rowing, you could be doing so many activities. If that sense gratification anchor is not removed, that boat is going nowhere. So people are engrossed in sense gratification. And if you give them these types of fruit of religious activities, they'll just use that for amplifying their sense gratification. And that is why you find in Krishna consciousness so beautiful that we're giving you sense gratification, but in a Krishna conscious way. At the same time, Prabhupada warned us again and again, right, that we are not here to enjoy. We are not here to exploit. We are here to serve. We are here to surrender to the Supreme Lord. We are here to glorify the Supreme Lord. So Prabhupada warned us again and again, making sure that we don't become deviated from this same principle that Narad Muni is telling Srila Vyasadeva. And finally, the last verse for today. Vichakshano syarthati ve ditum vibor ananta parasya nivirtita sukham pravarta manasya guner anat manas tatobhavam darshya chestitam vido. The Supreme Lord is unlimited. Only a very expert personality, retired from the activities of material happiness, deserves to understand this knowledge of spiritual values. Therefore, those who are not so well situated due to material attachment should be shown the ways of transcendental realization by your goodness through descriptions of the transcendental activities of the Supreme Lord. So Narad Muni is now directing very, very clearly what Srila Vyasadeva needs to do and why he needs to do what he needs to do. Srimad Bhagavatam topmost. Theological science is a difficult subject, especially when it deals with the transcendental nature of God. It is not a subject matter to be understood by persons who are too much attached to material activities. Only the very expert who have almost retired from material activities by culture of knowledge, spiritual knowledge, can be admitted to the study of this great science. In the Bhagavad-Gita, it is clearly stated that out of many hundreds and thousands of men, only one person deserves to enter into transcendental realization. And out of many thousands of such transcendental realized persons, only a few can understand the theological science specifically dealing with the with God as a person. Srila Vyasadeva is therefore advised by Narada to describe the science of God directly by relating his transcendental activities. Vyasadeva is himself a personality expert in this science, and he is unattached to material enjoyment. Therefore, he is the right person to describe it. And Sukadeva Goswami, son of Srila Vyasadeva, he is the right person to receive it. Srimad Bhagavatam is the topmost theological science, and therefore it can react on a layman as medicinal doses. But it contains because it contains transcendental activities of the Lord. There is no difference between the Lord and the literature. Literature is the factual, literary incarnation of the Lord. So the layman can hear the narration of the activities of the Lord. Thereby, they are able to associate with the Lord and thus gradually become purified from material diseases. So the Bhagavatam is the perfect medicine. Why? Because we are conditioned. We are coming from crow-like existence. And by reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, we become purified. But because Srimad Bhagavatam is the Lord, we also associating with the Lord and thereby developing a relationship with the Lord. The expert devotees can also discover novel ways and means to convert the non-devotees in terms of particular time and circumstances. So here Prabhupada is encouraging this bridge type of preaching. That means, we should be strategic. We should be innovative in how to attract people. Prabhupada was very innovative to prasadam, kirtan, so many ways, Rath Yatra Festival. Prabhupada was innovative according to time, place, and circumstance to bring people in Krishna consciousness. So that is important. That is there in how to bring people, but we should never lose focus of what the goal is. Devotional service is dynamic activity, and the expert devotees can find out competent means to inject it into the dull brains of materialistic population. Such transcendental activities of the devotees for the service of the Lord can bring a new order of life to the foolish society of materialistic men. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his subsequent followers exhibited expert dexterity in this connection. By following the same method, one can bring the materialistic men of this age of quarrel into order for peaceful life and transcendental realization. So we have a huge mission, a lifetime mission to help this planet, to help the people around us through this process that Prabhupada has given us. We can try to learn very dynamically, very expertly how to inject Krishna consciousness into the dull brains of people. It's not just telling people, it's not just forcing people, but it's been very expert, very strategic in helping people. And we start simply by hearing. So Prabhupada in his lecture says, so how it can be achieved? Nivrita, cease this materialistic way of life. So Narad Muni says, you simply describe the activities of Lord Krishna, and by hearing simply the activities of Krishna, one will be very easily able to cease from this materialistic way of life. And that is why Srila Prabhupada created temples. Prabhupada in his one lecture, he said, I simply want you to come, see the deities, take prasad, engage in hearing and chanting, kirtan, hearing some philosophy, and then go home. I don't want you to stay, I want you to go home. So that was Prabhupada's idea, that they come. See, because if you tell them to stay at the temple, join full-time, no, how can I join full-time? So you tell them, no, you come, have nice darshan, have nice kirtan, nice prasad, and go home. They'd be very happy. Yes, anyway, I would like to go home. So, but because they're coming and they're hearing, they're getting purified. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also recommended that people should be given a chance to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna Katha. Krishna Katha means speaking, or I mean to say narration about Krishna. So Bhagavad-Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also recommended, let them be situated in their own position. There is no necessity of changing his position. Give him chance to hear. Then gradually, Param Vichete Shri Krishna Sankirtan. So he says, Pravartamanasya Punay Atmanas Tato Bhavan Darshasya Chestitam. People are so much entangled by the modes of material nature. So in order to get them free from this entanglement, you show the path. Let them simply let them hear. Let them give oral reception to the wonderful activities of the Lord. So the beginning of Krishna consciousness and devotional service is hearing. And our devotional life is nourished, is matured by hearing. And when we paramhamsas and we perfect, we continue hearing the glories of Krishna. So hearing is pivotal. That's why we record these lectures, so that people who are searching on YouTube, if they happen to come in contact, they can hear, they can get benefited. Hearing is key. So these verses that we covered very beautifully, Narad Muni is sharing, diagnose, especially for us, that there's a vacuum, and that vacuum can only be filled by a relationship with Krishna. We want this embrace, we want this relationship, this tangible experience, this emotional relationship with Krishna. And how is this going to happen? Prayer includes 4 different aspects. Praying means praising. We can pray by thanking and expressing gratitude to the Lord. We can pray by asking the Lord for forgiveness, and we can also pray for gifts from the Lord. But very often we pray for things. It's centered on us. We need to not only just pray, but we need to praise. As we mentioned, Narad Muni, his focus is praising the Supreme Lord. Srila Prabhupada is praising the Supreme Lord. So we want to develop a habit, wonderful habit of praising Krishna. Not just praying to Krishna, but praising Krishna, glorifying Krishna. And how you can do that? Here's a practical example, a practical way. We want all of you to prepare a 10-minute class, okay? Especially for Janmashtami. 10-minute class. Janmashtami is coming on Monday, and we can attract Krishna's heart by praising him. Not only praying to him, but praising him. And you can do this by giving a 10-minute class, and the only person in that class is Krishna. So you give in the class to Krishna. Generally, when we speak to someone, we're speaking to someone about Krishna. Krishna is the third person. But now you need to speak to Krishna about Krishna. So like when you go to the deities, you can speak, you can give your 10-minute class on Krishna to the deities, who is Krishna. And so like you'll say, oh my Lord, oh Shri Krishna, you appeared in this world 5,000 years ago. Thank you so much for appearing for our benefit, so that we can see your beautiful pastimes. So you praying to you're praising Krishna in this way. Oh Krishna, you killed the Putana demon, yet you gave her the position of a nurse without even considering her ill intentions, simply because she had a desire to breastfeed you. You accepted that little service and gave us such amazing position. Please, my Lord, accept my services. So in this way, you are speaking to Krishna, you're glorifying Krishna, you're praising Krishna, and you can be grateful, appreciative, and also pray. And that brings us to the end of this beautiful section of the Bhagavatam. Kantarat Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Next week we will cover Canto 1, Chapter 5, verses 17 to 22. Any questions or comments anyone has? Thank you for the amazing class 2 days before Lord's appearance. Thank you, Mother Uttarani Devidasi. Yes, we can meditate and contemplate. Janmashtami is coming. We want to attract Krishna. We want Krishna to come into our heart. That the real Janma Astami, Janmastan, is not Vrindavan, not Mathura. The real Janmastan needs to be our heart. We want Krishna to appear in our heart. That is real Janma. When that happens, then you will really celebrate Janmashtami. But how is that going to happen? By glorifying Krishna sufficiently and constantly, according to Narad Muni. So we want to constantly increase our appetite, our desire to glorify Krishna, to hear Krishna. In this way, let the process take us into our relationship with Krishna. We will enjoy the process, the journey, and the outcome. Both will be exquisitely blissful. Shama says, Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you very much for an excellent class. Thank you. Ines says, thank you for the amazing class. Amavati Radhika says, absolute beautiful class. Thank you, Prabhu, for inspiring us through your wonderful Srimad Bhagavatam class. Beautiful slides with stunning pictures as well. We're so grateful, so inspiring to our Krishna consciousness. By me trying to serve you in this way, I pray that Krishna will personally appear in my heart and give me that fortunate position, opportune moment to have a loving relationship with Krishna. So that is my mode. Jagannath Priya, thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, thank you for your association. Rasa says, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, for always giving us such simple and practical ways to always remember Lord Krishna, never forgetting him. Jagannath Priya, thank you for today's class. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much. And we hope you all have a wonderful Janmashtami under the circumstances. Remember, even though the circumstances may be there, we can take the opportunity wherever practically possible to connect with Krishna and be able to associate, no matter what the circumstance is, glorify Krishna, please Krishna, and in this way nurture our devotional life by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveta Bhaktavanda ki jai, Nitai Go Pramanande Hari Hari Bol. So we shall see you all again next week for our Bhagavatam class. Hare Krishna.